Hello, happy sketchnoting day. I'd love to share with you what's in my toolbox. Now, sketchnoting is a wonderful way to learn and share with others so that they can learn too. And if you've ever wondered what markers or pens to use while sketchnoting, I've got you covered. So today I'd like to show you what tools I use to sketchnote and some pages from my sketchbooks. So first off, you're going to want to claim a favorite sketchbook to use. While this may take some time, if you know your criteria, it will be easier when you find yourself at the art store or at Neuland.com when trying to decide. Oh, and I should mention that I'm a Neuland ambassador. This means that if you're a student of mine at letslettertogether.com, you can get 15% off your next order at Neuland.com. For those of you who are in the US, the shipping can be a little expensive, so make that order count. Now, I don't get a kickback unless you, I don't know, buy my book and know that it also comes in German, yay. Or if you buy one of my orbits or hexits. And if you haven't seen these were a world craze. There was a world craze for these back in 2019, and people are continuing to discover them and how great they are for drawing the perfect shape while graphic recording. Oh, enough commercial time. Let's get back to sketchnoting. So here I'm going to show you my favorite sketchbooks that I've had over the years and why I chose them. And this might help you determine your own criteria. And I'll show a few more of my sketch notes inside as well. So here goes. Let me show you my desktop, and we're going to get blown away by all these sketchbooks. So you can see these are years of sketchbooks, and this particular one is by Art Alternatives. It's a 10 by 10 inch sketch note. It's square, and I prefer the square format because, well, I started out as a medium format photographer. So I just love that composition. Plus, when I started sketchnoting, Instagram was square format at the time. Okay, I'm dating myself. It has a hardcover. It's spiral bound, and it has perforation so that you can easily tear out the pages without having that jaggedy edge. It also has a very thick paper, and it's pretty smooth, but it's got a little bit of a tooth. Now, why I like it the most is because when I'm sketchnoting, it's got that hard surface, and because of the width, it's nice and big. I can use some of my bigger markers on it. Here I'm using the number 1 art marker here and here. The rest of this here is all done with a sketch one, but I can hold it in my hand. We call this the crook of your arm or the inside of your elbow. And so it holds there. I can hold this here. I can hold a couple of pens or markers in my hand and be writing with another one. It's just a really great setup if you happen to be standing up and watching demos. Even if you're sitting down, it's wonderful to have a nice hard surface. So that's why I love this marker. And let me show you some of my sketch notes here. So again, I hold this as I'm watching demos. This is from a workshop with Carol Dubosh, where she was teaching us how to make folded pens and how some of these other how it works when we start to use them. So here she's talking about the letters and how they're made in several strokes, just like I teach in my brush lettering. And so again, I'm using this red marker here is the number 1 art marker, the sketch one, and then the fine one. And I'll go over those in just a second. And that's what I'd pair with them, is I would pair the smaller markers in your collection to work with on this size. And Art Alternatives makes different sizes as well. I really love their 11 by 14 because you can do desktop sketchnoting and other people can be watching you. So let me talk about a couple of the markers that I've already talked about here. So Neuland has the sketch one, or the fine one. This is called the fine one, and it also comes in many colors. This is the old body style, and I'm showing you this because you can still order these while supplies last. And what's great about Neuland products is that they are refillable. You put the ink back here, and the nibs are replaceable. And what's so awesome about this is that I've had this one for years. It might have been one of the first ones that I bought back in 2010. So just know that these Neuland markers are environmentally friendly. That's my favorite thing about them. So that's the fine one. The sketch one comes in 4 sizes, 0.7, 0.5, 0.3, and 0.2. So that gives you the nice thin marks like these, written very, very thin. It's more of a pen. Then the new kid on the block is called the Neuland Fine One Flex. And this marker has a flexible brush that's very, very tiny. So it's perfect for sketchnoting. And I'll do a demo with that in a bit. And then we have the Neuland Twin One, which is similar to the #1 art marker, but it's a little bit smaller. So I would actually recommend this marker for sketchnoting. It has one side that has a brush edge, which can give you beautiful letters like this. And the other side is I would call it more of a chisel than a wedge, just by the way that it's formed. So this also has some special features in it too. It'll give you, you can use either the broad edge or the tip of the nib. And again, I'll do a quick demo in just a few minutes, but wanted to show you that's one of my favorite sketchbooks. Another great sketchbook is Neuland's Bulletproof. Now, the Bulletproof is wonderful because, and I've got to go back here where I don't have some notes, is because it's got grid dots on it. You may or may not be able to see that in the video, but they're little bitty dots. And I believe this was designed specifically for bullet journalers, but I love to use it as well. It's got a soft cover, so it's flexible and it's really durable. I've had this one for probably, close to maybe 5 years. And so it's really durable. You can throw it in your backpack. It's going to bend and it's going to go back right into place. I also love that it lies flat when I go to use it. And I'll show you some sketch notes in here. A couple of tips. I might as well show you these too. When you receive a new sketchbook, get to know it by using a variety of mark making tools to write the alphabet in proportion to the nib. So you'll see here, I'm using the different sketch ones. They also come in different colors. And then the fine one. And then this is the new Fine One Flex. So here, start to practice your letters in proportion to the marker or the pen that you're writing with, and then you can really start to build up hierarchy in your sketch notes. What's most important, what's maybe a topic, and then what's some of the more finer content or fine print. And then notice I'm also doing this on my pin it cards too. So anytime I work in a new format, I go ahead and make a sample of my markers so that I know what size is going to look like on that format. It helps take away some of the mystery. Also, reminder, have fun, write a pangram in your favorite lettering style or draw a picture. That helps you get used to the space here. And so you'll see here, I've written, this is my favorite pangram, jovial zombie graphic recorders quickly fill their markers with galaxy ink. And this was written with a Neuland Fine One art marker. So it's got a very long brush and in the lettering style Twinkle, which is a free lettering style that you can learn from me. So it looks like I've got, this is from my Learn to Draw or Learn to Sketchnote class when I'm talking about the different types of sketchnoting. And I love this quote. You'll probably see it several times. I use it a lot. I used to apologize for my lettering, and now I don't. My lettering didn't change. It stayed the same. How I worked with it changed. And this is inspired by Susan Gaylord and Mike Gold. Mike Gold mainly for the lettering. The quote is by Susan Gaylord. So again, I use this sketch note a lot for teaching, for creating posts on social media. Some of you may have seen some of these things may be familiar to you. And then, but by far, my favorite sketchbook is the 4-2 sketch by Neuland. Oh, I have a lot of these, as you can see, and I absolutely love them. So why? Again, we've got the square format. Now, the cover is a little dirty and messy because I've had this one for a long time, and I even write sometimes what's inside just for easy being able to look at the front and knowing what's in there. I also put some tags on the side so that you can see them. But what's great about this sketchbook is that I can always cover the cover with another piece of paper because of the way that it's bound. This is Coptic bounding. It also has 4 different colors of paper. Now, what's Coptic bounding? It's a binding technique that you can, when you open it up, no matter which page you open it to, it's going to be completely flat. It has a hard cover and it has really thick paper. So again, you're going to see me practicing my different lettering in different markers so that I can see how it's going to fill up on the page. And again, that just gives me a sense of the space that I have and the tool that I'm working with. As you can see, I have a bunch here, clay mark making tools. I have some white on black in here. Let's see, so I was reading a book. Let's see if it's in here. Yeah. So I was reading the book Notes from Graphic Clay, and I love to take sketch notes from when I'm reading books. And so as I was reading the book, I started pulling out some of my favorite artists and their work, what kind of technique that they're using. I was actually a ceramics major in college. And so this is something that's really interesting to me. As you can see, I have my version of Architect here going, different techniques, different tools. I'm just writing some of the key highlights from my sketchnoting from that process. And then I came up with some ideas of my own. Oops. I think I showed you before that quote. What's great again is that we could work on black. So this is my favorite ink from Neuland is called Anthracite, and it's a metallic ink that's a really dark gray. And this is actually, Neuland used to have a white ink, which I think they've discontinued, but I absolutely love that white ink, and that's what you're seeing here as well. And then back in 2019, I did a keynote speech at VisConf in Melbourne. And I literally did the entire keynote. Some of the things were already drawn in. Some of them I drew already. You can see I even have my script up here. So when I was showing my keynote speech, nobody could see my script, but I could read it. And then I would write here. So this I actually wrote out, and you can't see it, but there's some little pencil lines here. So those were my guidelines. And then I gave a lesson on Architect and the importance of bringing that all together. And again, just writing as I went and took everyone through a process. And I also there's a link to this keynote on YouTube, so I will share that as well. So these are some of my sketch notes. Let's see if there's anything else in here worth looking at. Sometimes I use a brush pens. They're called Pentel water. They're actually watercoloring pens, but I put ink in them. Sometimes I even put Neuland ink in them, and I write like this. And so this is a lot of different brush lettering, and there's some pencil here as well. And it looks like this red marker here is probably this Neuland Twin One, the brush edge, because I love this marker so much. So yeah, so now you can see some of my other lettering styles it has a little bit of an architect feel. And of course, this is based in Twinkle. And then this is kind of a fun one. These were sketch notes that I created, and then I ended up making a really big flip chart. And this is when I was taking a vocablo class with Jill Greenbaum. And so I then designed this and then used it for another class, but I was asking my students, okay, for our key takeaways. So this is sort of the end of session. What are some of the key takeaways from using analog tools? And I actually presented this through Neuland. I think the analog tools can be found on their website and also through the IFEP. Wonderful session with Zandra Dirks, where we showed a lot of different things like the My Work board, people that like to work with the My Work board or Instacards or the bulletproof sketchbook that I just showed you, the 4-2 sketch that I just showed you. We were showing all of these. And if any of you haven't seen the graphic Wally, that's a must see. We also had lots of activities. So I asked folks what was the most fun. And then create some priorities, write down today's date, and then consider what are you going to pursue first? What are you going to put to use? Is it a tool? Is it a lettering style that I taught? And then put a date on it so that you can challenge yourself to finish it. And then what do you want to study or improve next? And when do you plan to start that? So again, I love using this as an interactive way to teach, and it's just a great sketchbook. Again, it's really sturdy. It doesn't flex, but it's got enough of a flex to it that it's not going to break when it's in your bag. And let's see if we can find an empty space in my book to write some letters. So you might recognize this from one of my videos at Creative at Home, where I talk about practicing your lettering in styles that are not in your language, in your native language. So again, anything that I mentioned in this video, I will put down in the comments below. Oh, lots of drawing. I think this sketchbook is completely full. Let me see if I can find another one. This should be somewhat new. You may recognize Versals when I taught the Versals class. Super fun. These are some upcoming projects I'm working on. Okay, so let's find a blank sheet of paper here and get to work on showing you how some of these lettering styles are going to fit on this page. Now, I talked about the fine one, that being a very fine line, the sketch one, I mean, and then the fine one, and then the flex, and then the twin one. And this is just a colored sketch one. So I'm sorry, fine one. Ooh, even I get confused here. All right, so let me show you again what we could create with these. And let's start with our monoline. So a monoline, there's really 3 different types of nibs. We have monoline, wedge, or a lot of times I will call this broad edge. Broad edge is a term used in calligraphy, but I also use it to describe a section of the marker. And then we have brush. And any lettering style that you do will be supported by one or more of these. So a monoline is going to be either your sketch one marker, which looks a little mechanical, or this one, which is the fine one, and it's got a round nib. So really it's just got either a point or a round nib. Your broad edge, which looks like this, could be a wedge or a chisel, has a flat face and flat sides. And then your brush, which is also on this marker, you're going to use the tip or the side. You want to be very careful and intentional when you're using the tip. There's a very specific use and a very specific lettering style for that. So let me show you some of those. And actually, I'm going to show you what kind of marks these make so that you know that no matter what angle you are writing in with a monoline, it's going to make the same line, right? Because it's either rounded or pointed. But when we get to the broad edge, you can have thick lines, medium-sized lines, thinner lines, very thin lines, right? So you can get different strokes depending on how you're turning your marker. And then when it comes to the brush nib, you can have, and I tell people to start horizontally and go thick, and then go a little higher, and then your lightest line is going to be the line that goes up, and your other lines are the ones that go down. And so these are the types of marks that these brushes or these nibs, this is a brush nib, that these nibs make. So let me talk about a little bit about the fine one flex and why it's so important. And actually, a brush marker, and this brush marker too, is got so much versatility. So what you can do with this marker is you can write lots of different lettering styles. If you know Neuland hand, which this is a little bit, since it's so small, because we usually write Neuland hand with a large marker, notice I am using the side of the brush nib to do that. You can also use the side of the brush nib to write in a lettering style called architect. Again, I'll put a link in the show notes or the description below so that you can get access to any of these lettering styles if you want. I'll give you a discount if you sign up today. Another one you use the side of the marker on is called Sign Painter. How to letter like a sign painter or sign writer, depending on where you're from. We also have brush lettering. So brush lettering, and you're not going to see it so much on the smaller markers like this, but it is, you are going to have thicks and thins. I don't call this cursive because it's a script. Cursive is just one big long loopy like spaghetti line, but it is a script. Let me zoom in there so you can see those. Another really fun lettering style to use, again, using either the side of the marker, and we can make an A actually look sort of like the N, like that. It's called National Parks, and this is from my book, Lettering Journey. I'm going to go the other way with the A because that's what's really fun about this lettering style is that you get to vary it up. Low junctures. Oops, I made that other R. Low junctures, you'll see that on the P, the R, the K, and the S is very much like a Neuland, a traditional Neuland S, but you can also write it on the very tip. That's what's so fantastic about this marker alone is that it already has a hierarchy built into it. So you can use lots of different lettering styles and different parts of the nib to write different sizes. Notice I'm getting smaller. There you go. And then one of my favorites, and the crowd goes wild, Wacky Western. And again, in my book, and inspired by lettering styles that I saw on the road. And in this case, I'm just going to write wacky. You can also learn this in an online course with the same name, Lettering Journey, either from my website or from the Neuland.com site. And then also we talked about architect. You can also write that on the tip. So you can get different sizes too, same marker, all different lettering styles and sizes. So I'm curious, what's in your sketchbook? Oops. So I'm curious, what's in your sketchbook and what kind of supplies do you use? I would love for you to put that down below in the comments. Love to hear from you. And I'll see you in one of the upcoming classes where I'll talk more about the lettering styles so you can learn them and make them